Okay, this is a true crime case that lives absolutely rent-free in my head because the beginning of it sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. I swear to you, it's completely real. This is the story of a guy who was secretly living inside someone's walls. First, let's talk about Daniel LaPlante. He grew up in Massachusetts in the 1970s, and by the time he was a teenager, people around him already described him as troubled. He had a history of break-ins, burglaries, and petty crimes, but what made his crimes different was how personal and disturbing they were. Because Daniel didn't just break into houses to steal things, he would break in and then stay. In 1986, when Daniel was about 16 years old, he became fixated on a teenage girl named Trisha Knobloch. He started stalking her, watching her, following her, and eventually he broke into her family's home. At first, it seemed like a typical break-in, but then things started happening in the house that made the family think something was seriously off. Objects would move, pictures would fall off the walls, food would go missing, and no one could explain it. At one point, Trisha came home and noticed pictures had fallen off the wall in the house. When she went to put them back, she realized there were messages written behind them. Someone had written things like, "I'm in your room. I'm watching you." Imagine being a teenager and realizing someone might actually be watching you inside your house. But the truly terrifying part, Daniel had actually been living inside the walls of the house. He had found small crawl spaces and hidden areas inside the home where he could hide, and he would stay there for hours, sometimes days, just quietly watching the family. Then, when the family would leave the house, he would come out. He would eat their food and move things around, write those messages, and then when they would return or before they would return, he would climb back into the walls. The family began hearing strange noises in the house, like scratching sounds, strange movement, but they just couldn't figure out where the heck it was coming from. Eventually, things escalated in a way that was absolutely horrifying. One day, Trisha came home and realized someone was in the house. She started hearing movement, so she went downstairs to investigate. And suddenly, Daniel appeared. But what made the moment even more disturbing was what he was wearing. He had put on the dead mother's clothes. He had makeup on, and he started chasing Trisha throughout the house. She eventually ran out of the house screaming, and neighbors called police. When officers arrived, they actually found Daniel hiding inside the home. He was obviously arrested, and investigators learned that he had been secretly entering the house multiple times. At that point, Daniel was charged with several crimes related to break-ins. But because he was still young, the legal system treated it like a juvenile case. And this is where the story takes an absolutely tragic turn. December of 1987, police in Massachusetts responded to a brutal crime scene. Inside a home, they found 33-year-old Priscilla Gustafson dead. Priscilla was pregnant. Her two children, 7-year-old Abigail and 5-year-old William, were also found deceased. The crime shocked the entire community. Investigators quickly began trying to figure out who could have committed such a horrific crime. Soon, evidence started pointing back to someone they already knew, Daniel LaPlante. Police discovered that Daniel had broke into the Gustafson home, and when Priscilla returned home, he was already inside. He shot her. Then he turned his attention to the two children. Investigators later determined that he drowned both of them in separate bathtubs. It was an unbelievably disturbing crime. Police launched a massive search for Daniel, and eventually he was captured after a chase. Once arrested, he confessed to everything. During questioning, investigators learned just how dangerous he had become. At his trial, prosecutors laid out the timeline of everything that happened, from the stalking to secretly living inside someone's house to the Gustafson family's lives being taken. The case shocked people across Massachusetts because it raised a super terrifying question. How had someone who had already shown such disturbing behavior been released before committing something way worse? Daniel LaPlante was ultimately convicted, and he received multiple life sentences in prison, and he does remain incarcerated to this day. The reason this case sticks in my head so much is honestly because of how it begins. The idea that someone could be secretly living inside the walls of your house, watching you, moving things around, writing messages, just terrorizing you. It's genuinely one of the creepiest situations I've heard about in a real case. And when you realize how the story ends, it becomes even more disturbing. Every time I think about the case, I just imagine the moment where the family started noticing things moving around the house, and they had no idea someone was literally hiding inside their walls. If you've never heard this case before, now you know why it lives rent-free in my brain. And I'm curious, what's a true crime case that you can't stop thinking about? Because this one absolutely stuck with me.